I get this question from our Australian customers all the time, and that's why do I need any of the other CGT strategies when I could just run minimized gain all the time? Welcome to the channel. My name's Navar and I'm the founder and lead engineer of the Navexa investment tracker and tax reporting platform. And in this video today, I'm going to take you through why you would use the different CGT strategies and the pros and cons of doing each one. But first, let's start with the basics. Here in Australia, there are two super common CGT strategies. The first one being FIFO, and that stands for first in, first out. And if you don't know how FIFO and these capital gain strategies are calculated, check the links in the description. I have videos on each of the strategies. You can see some complex examples of how they work. But today we're going to talk about why. So with FIFO, the high-level view is that when you make a sell in your holding, you use the first shares that you bought to calculate the capital gain. Now, if you think about you've owned a stock for 10 years, you bought your first parcel of it way back 10 years ago, and then you sell some of that stock today, the first shares you bought are likely way lower in price than what they are today. So when you run a FIFO strategy, you often end up paying the most capital gains tax than any other strategy because you're simply selling the oldest parcels first, and over enough time they will usually be much lower in price. FIFO has been the default strategy in Navexa and the default strategy that most accountants and investors use when calculating their tax. And the reason for that is it's just very simple to calculate. First in, first out. You order all your trades by the date you purchase them, and you start calculating the gain from the oldest one all the way through to the newest one. It's super easy to remember. You can always back calculate everything easily if you've always just ran a FIFO strategy, and most accountants and things know how to do a FIFO calculation. So that's by default, but that means by default you're usually paying the most amount of tax. When if you're trying to be a high performance investor, probably not what you're trying to do most of the time. Now the second most common strategy is LIFO, which is last in, first out, and it's the opposite of the FIFO strategy. You're still ordering the trades by date, but you're doing the newest one first. So if you think about our example with the holding a stock for 10 years, chances are that the shares you bought most recently will have a similar price to what you're selling them for today. So if you think if I bought the stock originally 10 years ago, the price is probably going to be very different to what I'm selling it for today. But if I bought some more of that stock a month ago, chances are the price will be pretty similar to what it would be if I was selling today. So switching it around and doing a LIFO is kind of like the half-ass minimized gain strategy. While people typically use LIFO to try and pay the less tax, it's not specific enough. You're just hoping that the price is similar from the most recent shares. But as you know, if you've invested in anything a bit volatile, things like penny stocks or in crypto, or just things that are traded a lot, just because you bought that thing recently doesn't mean the price will be similar. It could have gone up or down by 20–30%, and that's quite a huge swing. Now the other two strategies, and these are the ones that are a bit more interesting, are the minimized gain and maximized gain strategy. Now of course it depends on the context, but most investors that I've spoken to typically trying to pay the least amount of tax legally that they possibly can. So that's why recently the question was put to me, what is the point of all the other strategies? Why wouldn't I just use minimized gain all the time? The problem is within the question itself. It's assuming that the minimized gain strategy means you're always going to be paying the least amount of tax. While you might be getting the least gain from your shares, that amount gets added onto your income and the full tax amount is calculated. We're going to jump across to the whiteboard and I'm going to go through some examples where it might actually be wise to be running the maximized gain strategy every now and then instead of just always running the minimized gain strategy. So let's do it. Now I'm going to show you an example of when you might switch CGT strategy from year to year from min gain to max gain. Now let's assume whoever this theoretical person is, they're trying to pay the least amount of tax legally possible. Let's say in financial year 22, they earned this much income. Now the figures don't really matter. I'll demonstrate the proportion and that will explain the strategies. So let's assume this red line here is when you go up into the next tax bracket. Now, the way the tax system works is that you take your personal income, then you take your capital gains, it gets roughly added on top, and then you pay tax on the full amount of that. Now that's a very simplified version, of course. Go check out some of our other videos for more detailed information around capital gains tax. So let's say we ran the min gain strategy and incurred a capital gain. And that capital gain gets added on top of our income. And you can see in this example, it's put us above this particular tax bracket. So the amount above that tax bracket will be taxed at a higher rate. Now, you might just ask, well, I always want to pay the least amount of tax. Why wouldn't I just keep running the min gain strategy? Well, let's assume that in financial year 23, you had a bit of a down year. Maybe you were unemployed for half of it. Maybe you're a business owner and it was a slower year. Maybe you had less dividend income or less rental income than normal, and it reduced your personal income quite significantly. So let's say you only earned this much income relative to the year before where you earned this much. Now, say because you're having a down year, you probably need some extra cash, right? So you're forced into selling some of your shares. Now, you could run the min gain strategy and incur a little bit of tax here. But this could be a potentially great scenario to switch to the maximize gain strategy and offload some of your big winners now while you have a lower amount of tax. So remember, we ran min gain the year before and made that much capital gain. This year, we run max gain and it gives us this much gain. So probably double the amount the min gain strategy gave us the year before. But as you can see in this example, we're still under that particular tax bracket. So we were able to leverage the fact that the personal income was a lot lower this year, change to a max gain strategy to get rid of some of the big winners while it's going to incur the least amount of tax. Now the thing is, it doesn't matter whether you run min gain, max gain, LIFO or FIFO. At the end of the day, you're going to have to sell the shares at some point and incur the full gain. So that's why it's smart that you can change CGT strategies year to year depending on the goal that you're trying to achieve. So this could similarly be, if you're a bit less hardcore about it, a FIFO strategy and a LIFO strategy potentially, because you can change CGT strategies between tax years as well. So as you've just seen, it can be quite wise to change CGT strategy depending on your goal for each financial year. So if you like that video, check out our other video on 3 of the biggest CGT mistakes Australian investors are making.